Previously on Podcast Without Pretense.
I want to hear what Eric has to say.
Eric had the best points, and it's the best stuff from him.
Hi,
Hello.
I'm Jonathan Strickland.
I'm Ayaz Akhtar.
Eric Sandine will be with us at some point, sometime in the future, perhaps even on this very episode.
There's a chance
And
of that. He's
together
apparently doing.
we are 2.5 men.
Apparently, Eric's got something important to do, like work or something.
Yeah.
So he's like rushing home, and maybe he'll be on the episode or not.
Yeah, he said he would be a little late, but he was going to try his best to get home as quickly as possible. So we're hoping that he does so safely and that he joins us soon. In the meantime, you got us.
That's the nicest thing I think you've ever said about Eric, and he's not even here to hear that. You want him to hear.
As soon as he shows up, I'm like, God damn it, Eric.
What the fuck, Eric? But anyway, on this program, occasionally my audio and video doesn't suck. So if I talk a lot less today, it's because my connection is just shit.
Whereas my connection has been somewhat repaired, so it's not as bad as it was last week.
How is that possible? Because you are dealing with the most horrid company in America.
Yeah. All right. So update from last week. We had the technician come out, or 2 weeks ago, I guess it was. We had the technician come out, even though I knew already there was nothing this guy was going to be able to do, but this is the way that Comcast was determined to do things. Technician comes out, I explain what's happening. He says, yeah, that sounds like it's more like a neighborhood issue, not an issue going straight to your house. And I can't do anything about that because I'm just the guy who handles from the outside connection into your house, not from the outside connection to the pole or anything like that. However, there was another Comcast guy who happened to be in the neighborhood with a cherry picker truck. And he was apparently there to address a neighborhood-wide issue. And the technician told me, I'm 99% sure that's where your problem is. So whatever he's doing is going to fix it. So I didn't get any help from the guy at all. I mean, he was nice, but he didn't, he couldn't do anything, or at least he said there was nothing that he could do that would make any difference, which was what I was worried about in the first place. After about maybe 1 or 2 p.m. that day, our connection was great. And for a couple of days, at least a day and a half, we didn't have any interruptions in service. But as time has gone on, we're getting back to where we were, where once or twice or sometimes as many as 5 times in a day, the service will just drop out. And it's just the cable service or the internet service, not the cable TV service, because our cable TV is still working. It's just the internet connection. And I already know that if it's in fact this same problem as it was before, it doesn't do me any good to call Comcast because they'll say, we'll send a technician out. I'm like, that's not going to help. You have to send out one of your engineers to look at the neighborhood issue, not just my house. And I'm tired. They've beaten me down, Ayaz.
Well,
right now it's working.
Yeah, I mean, you have the better connection right now. I'm on the Time Warner cable system, which could have been bought by Comcast. And from what it sounds like, maybe Comcast would do a better job than Time Warner right now. So, although, to be fair, I'm using a residential line. Maybe I need to move to a business line so people are on a different node.
No. Okay, fuck that. All right. Fucking residential should have the quality that you need to have a fucking Skype call. All right.
And we had a decent call for a good 30 minutes before the show started, and it was fine. But for some reason, everybody apparently in my building showed up at 8:53 p.m. on a Wednesday night.
Wi-Fi, and
they're like, "Well, fuck you, Ayaz. We know you want to do a video.
You're okay right now. So let's hold out hope that from this point forward, everything is all right, and maybe neither of us will go on some sort of stabbing spree inspired by ISP problems.
And while we're yammering and I'm mentioning times of day, and I don't say this often, we actually do this show live on Wednesdays sometimes at gfqnetwork.com/live or gfqlive.tv. And thanks to the GFQ guys for taking care of us so well. We know that we're holding a person hostage right now. Suncast is producing for us. So if the show is a little short today because we're missing Eric or whatever, and people want to go home, people want to go. It's okay. Anyway,
Yeah, we're,
so
we're the problem children of the network, and we understand that. And we're not going to change, but we do
no,
understand that.
yeah, your producing is very important to us. Please stay on the line. We'll be with you. We'll be with you whenever the hell we feel like it.
Yeah,
Anyway,
Jesus, whatever you do, don't make us go back to the days when Ayaz had to fucking edit and publish this goddamn show.
that was a nightmare. We used to just
But
do audio back then.
by edit, I mean he would just upload the file.
I would remove the beginning and end. Anyway, those classic episodes are available at gfqnetwork.com. While we're waiting for Standing, let's just go into this thing. We do
All right.
a terrible thing to each other. We make all of us watch a movie pretty much every week. And the idea is because we're so super connected, because we have second screens everywhere. Here's my phone right here. It's really hard for us to actually pay attention to something. We thought, hey, what if we watch the movie and we try to keep track how long it is before we look at a second screen or need a distraction or wise off, kind of talk smart about the movie. And we've been doing this for like, yeah, have a drink, about 60 to 80,000 weeks now. We have about 1 million episodes, many of which have been recorded. And so,
about a third of them have been recorded.
yeah, so this time it was my turn to pick a movie. We've watched some horrible movies, we've watched some fun movies, and I think this one falls in the middle. We finally got to watch A Deadly Adoption, the Lifetime movie by Will Ferrell and Kristen Wiig, and it's called A Deadly Adoption. It's on Lifetime, and it looked like it was an April Fool's joke, but it was real. How long before you needed a second screen, Jonathan?
All right. Well, I'll go with how long before a distraction caused my attention to waver from the movie, which is 17 minutes. And I have a feeling I could have gone much longer than that because this movie's not. It's not egregiously awful. We'll get into more of that. But what happened in 17 minutes was my dog jumped on my lap and blocked my view of the computer screen, which is where I was playing the movie. The the movie was only on the computer screen. That's the only thing I had going. It was maximized. I didn't have any other programs open. I didn't have anything else that could be a notification. But Tybalt jumped in my lap. He would not move, and I could not see anything past him. And because I love my dog, I let him sit there. So I fussed over him not really paying attention to the movie. So that's what I counted as. But I could have gone longer. It probably, by the time when I actually did start using a second screen, was probably closer to 26 minutes, I would say, somewhere in that range.
Yeah, I got disqualified right away. I have been so bad at time management lately that I'm like, screw it. I have to watch this while I'm at work, which means 0 because I had to do work. So at 0, 0, 0. But for attention span, I would say that I probably, thankfully, because there wasn't like a lot of email notifications or anything. Sorry, company I work for, on whatever day that was.
That you won't know because you can't tell the difference from one day to the next from my performance. So therefore, I'm not going to tell you.
Yeah, if you didn't notice a lack in my performance, it was none of those days, and this was just a fun anecdote I just made up. But I probably spent a good, I'd say 10 minutes actually solidly watching the movie because I was just trying to get a feel for it. And so that way, when I was looking down, I could tell what I was kind of getting into. And we have agreed that the person who picks the movie will put a review in through many, many versions of Google Translate and then review the movie in a language. In my particular case, it went through about 6 to 8 passes through Google Translate. Would you like to hear this review of A Deadly Adoption?
I would love to hear this review of A Deadly Adoption.
Okay. After a lot of translations, here we go. Omar, classic movie with Will Ferrell and Kristen Wiig. This is all a false identity predictable. The story is very simple, authentic. But of course, the film under the age of some of the pictures. Alternative mother and the little boy has finally been exaggerated respectively.
Alternative mother. Oh, you know what? I give that a solid thumb. I don't know if it's up or down, but it gets a thumb.
received a thumb.
Yeah.
And because I was also working, and the movie was not bad, so I didn't
No,
take a tremendous amount of notes to keep myself interested. That's usually why I take lots of notes. And do you want to describe the
the
this movie,
plot.
Jonathan?
Yeah. All right. So the plot is, if you didn't know that if Will Ferrell and Kristen Wiig were not in this movie, it would come across as probably one of the actually less balls out crazy Lifetime original movies. Right. I would say that this is on the low end of the balls out crazy scale. And most of the crazy stuff happens in the the last 20 minutes of the movie. That's when you get like the first two acts are largely forgettable. But the story is that you've got a writer, and the writer writes books about finance and is on the precipice of becoming a big time author. I mean, he's already doing insanely well based upon his amazing house that's right on a lake. His wife is an organic farmer. It's the character played by Kristen Wiig. They have a daughter who is turning one at the beginning of the movie, I guess, maybe. And then they're having a birthday party, and all the friends, like all the sophisticated friends who know the writer, are there. And Kristen Wiig, the mother, she is pregnant with their second child, who has been identified as a boy. She goes out on the dock, which we are told a couple of times is rotten and needs to be repaired, because she wants to go out on the lake. But because the dock is rotten and needs to be repaired, she has a fall. A railing gives way. She falls, hits her head, goes underwater. Will Ferrell's character, Robert, I think, dives in to save her, pulls her out, resuscitates her, but as a result of the accident, they lose the baby. Skip ahead 5 years. We are told that Kristen Wiig's character can no longer have a kid, and we also learn that Will Ferrell's character went through a phase of alcoholism within those 5 years and is apparently on the other side of that, or is emerging from that, 6 months sober. And they have decided that they want to adopt a child in order to try and mend this family. They feel like that is the missing piece that will put this broken family back together. The daughter by now is 6. She looked older than that to me, but I'm terrible at judging the ages of kids. And then they meet a 6 month pregnant young lady named Bridget, and Bridget gives them this amazing sob story. The caseworker and Bridget show up. More about that in a second. The caseworker and Bridget show up to talk about this adoption plan, and after meeting with the father and mother, there's a discussion. They say they like Bridget. They feel very sorry for her because she's in really a bad condition, despite the fact that she looks like a fucking lingerie model. Um, she is apparently in really a dire situation. So they invite her to stay with them because they have a large house and they want to adopt her baby, and they want the baby to be healthy, and they want her to be safe. So she agrees and moves in. End of Act 1. Act 2, we find out that Bridget, of course, harbors an obsession over Will Ferrell's character. She knows who he is. She's a fan of his writing. Uh, and you can tell she's starting to plot something. And the daughter starts to find out, but is lied to by Bridget. The daughter is young enough and naive enough to
By the
believe the
way,
lies.
so in classic, so this is essentially done in a classic Lifetime movie, maybe like 90s, early 2000s style of a film, such that when they want to introduce the concept that Bridget is, she has these feelings towards Robert Benson, financial analyst, whatever, they do the thing where the woman stands in the bedroom of the other person where they're showing a photograph. So Bridget's reflection is showing instead of Kristen Wiig's reflection next to Robert. It was as if both of these people, Wig and Farrell, actually studied these movies. I'm pretty sure they did, because every single thing that we talk about is done in a classic way, such that, again, like you said, if it was different actors, it would just be like, oh, it's an old school Lifetime movie.
Yeah, they were really exercising all the tropes, right? So then, uh, the the escalation in Act Two is that we learn more that Bridget is obsessed with this guy. She has a shady boyfriend type character show up that the daughter sees, but the parents haven't seen. And then at the conclusion of Act Two, Will Ferrell's character discovers that Bridget is in fact not Bridget. Bridget is someone named Joni. And then he remembers that he had met Joni during one of his drunken book tours. You find out that he took a whole series of book tours just to get away from the home and to forget about the death of his child. Because his thing is that he's the super overprotective dad who continues to mourn for the loss of his son. He has never been able to move beyond that. And so he figures out that he met her and that he had a one night stand with her while he was doing this whole drunken, book tour deal. And the book tour drunken party thing is absolutely ridiculous. That's one
I
of the few
love
times.
that. I
Yeah, it's
so
one
love
of the.
that.
It was
That he's-
if there were more moments like that through this movie, I would have liked it more because I felt like that was one of the few times where they actually indulged in excess the way they needed to
yeah.
really make this interesting.
You had this
But they,
idea that okay. So by the way, the daughter that is alive, she's a diabetic. It's not like
yes,
she's so it's a pretty well known issue. And if you told somebody's diabetic, they really wouldn't freak out. They'd be like, okay, she needs insulin, or what do we do about that? Or if you don't give her sugar, it's not like it's an unknown kind of disease. It wasn't like they were that lazy. But the
yeah,
father's super overprotective. It's hilarious. And then with this drunken book tour concept, this idea that financial a financial book author is gonna go out on a tour, take all these tours because he wants to forget about his kid, and just gets hammered, and they're groupies for his for
yeah.
this. It's
Young, attractive groupies.
it's so mind-boggling and ridiculous, and it's well played. I mean, the thing is, Will Ferrell is not playing this for laughs at all. He's playing it
No,
straight. Everyone's playing
he's
it's really straight.
they're actually coming across as painfully earnest.
Yeah,
Like
and I mean,
there are moments where you're like, if they turned it up even half a notch more, it would clearly be a spoof. But it's played right in the range where you're like, this isn't quite a spoof. This is a Lifetime movie. This isn't dialed up enough for it to be making a joke about it. It just is.
yeah, Kristen
Which is
Wiig's
one of the
character.
yeah,
She's the organic baker, and they do
yeah.
that completely straight. There's no real joke about it. Nobody makes fun of it in the movie. I mean, maybe
They
once or
they
twice.
have an incredibly stereotypical gay assistant to her, Charles.
Yep.
He's very much the sassy gay boyfriend type character, you know. Um, but very much played up in that stereotypical way. So the way the story then goes is that Bridget ends up deciding to essentially kidnap the daughter, who has already figured out that something is up, but has been lied to, and she's very, like I said, very naive, so she kind of buys into it. But Bridget kidnaps her, takes her across the lake to another cabin, which is where her criminal boyfriend, we're told multiple times that he's a criminal, is hiding out. Uh, the gay assistant eventually tracks the boyfriend back to the cabin when the boyfriend's going into town. He sees them and had recognized that Bridget and this guy had talked earlier, and he thinks something's up. And by this time, the it's known that the daughter is missing. He tracks him down and gets while he's trying to spy on them to figure out what's going on, he gets knocked out and then eventually shot and killed by the boyfriend. The Bridget decides that she's going to go and talk to Robert, and also probably kill Kristen Wiig's character to take her place. She's been stringing along the boyfriend character, promising him that what they're really going to do is get a ransom for the kid. But in reality, she just wants to take the place of Robert's wife. So she goes back over to Robert's house, has a brief fight scene with the wife, knocks her out, puts her in an SUV in the garage, starts the SUV up so that the wife will die of carbon monoxide poisoning. She goes into the house, confronts Robert, tells him, now we can be together. Now we can, because I know you love me because I love you. This is where Bridget slash Joni switches into total crazy female mode, which sort of like that switch kind of comes out of nowhere, but that's also a Lifetime movie kind of thing. She ends up shooting Richard, first winging him in the arm, like grazing him, and then she shoots him a second time, and that goes into his shoulder, and he falls to the ground. She thinks she's killed him.
Wait, at this point, did you mention at all that Joni is not pregnant and she
Oh
faked
no,
that?
she's faking pregnancy. Yeah, she's wearing a fake belly.
Not only did she fake it, but when she becomes just regular Joni and she's gone a little nuts, she basically, oh, maybe it's a little later, but she does change her visual, her appearance completely changes from
It is
like,
in this part. It is in this part where she does that. She goes into
yeah,
sort of a punkish, gothish kind of look.
heavy makeup, short shorts, and like a vest, and she's like evil Joni now.
Yeah. Yeah, the transformation is pretty ridiculous. So she hightails it back to the cabin, tells the boyfriend that both Robert and his wife are dead. And I'm sorry that I'm saying his wife. I honestly can't remember what Kristen Wiig's character's name was. Is it like Sarah or something? Do you have the
I have
list
to
of?
look it up. It is Sarah Benson.
Okay,
Very good.
Sarah. All right. I apologize for that. I hate to describe a character as Robert's wife. That's just not very memorable. So she did a
Well,
fine job, by the way.
in fairness, I forgot that his name was Robert. I'm like, oh, Will Ferrell and Kristen Wiig, and then there's Sully. The daughter's
Yeah,
name is
Sully is
Sully,
the daughter.
which
Yeah.
I thought was a
So
great, like, ridiculous joke. Like, it's not like it's short for Sullivan or anything. It's just Sully.
yeah.
So,
So they go. She goes back to the cabin. She's convinced she's killed both Robert and Sarah. And Sully finds out about this, and she's just like, "No, don't worry, sweetie. I'll take care of you." Sully, of course, is in need of her medicine for her diabetes, so she's not feeling great either. And then the boyfriend totally loses his shit because he expected to get ransom money. So then she threatens the boyfriend with a gun. He's like, "What are you gonna do? Kill me?" And then she shoots him in the stomach. He falls over. She grabs Sully and they make a run for it and they get into the car. By this time, Robert has recovered. He finds Sarah in the garage and takes her out of the car, and she recovers.
in this
He immediately,
scene, when he takes her out of the garage, first, by the way,
yeah,
again, like you mentioned, Robert is shot in the arm. He takes her out
yeah,
of the car, and they do this hero shot where they're shooting from the bottom of the garage on the outside. The
yeah,
garage door opens up, and there standing Robert Benson holding Sarah Benson knocked out. And the funny thing is, he waits for the whole garage door to be up before he steps out. And I'm thinking,
yeah,
you know what? The fact that they're really trying to stick some kind of realism into this, which they have been for the most part. This is the deep end part because we've had the big shift to Joni evil. You'd think you'd duck and go under as quick as possible to get air for your dying wife here. But that didn't happen. We have this amazing, awesome hero shot of Will Ferrell holding Kristen Wiig. I thought that was a
yeah.
good little touch.
So yeah, and I gotta admit something, Ayaz. Once I got to about the 45-minute mark, I watched the rest of this on twice normal speed. So,
Ah, yeah.
which is, oh, fuck you. You've done that with like half the movies we've watched.
Oh, I'm just saying, like, I thought the pacing of this movie was fine, but I could see it being way better at 2x speed.
Yeah, no,
That's why I'm laughing.
there were moments where it's like these. I guess they're supposed to build up the suspense, but they mostly look dull to me. At 2 times speed, it was bearable. So I didn't like. There are moments where Will Ferrell is his character Robert. First, when he goes into then Bridget's room to find out that she is Joni. At 2 times speed, that takes a while. And I was just imagining, like, what would this be if I were watching it at its normal speed? At any rate, so once he has Sarah out of the garage and she's breathing on her own, he says he's going to go and try and get Sully. So he leaves, and it's just so happens that Bridget, or Joni at that point, is driving Sully in a truck, and they are going on a bridge, and that's the same bridge where Robert is walking toward where Bridget is, despite the fact that I don't think he knew exactly where she went. So I don't know how he knew to go in that direction. But she sees him, and then she's going to run him down, but she ends up. Does she swerve or does Sully make her swerve? I can't remember.
Sully causes a car accident, and then Joni crashes into the bridge. I guess it was one of the barriers on the bridge, and
Yeah.
then that's what happens.
Yeah. So then Joni and Sully get out. Uh, Sully comes over to Robert. Joni gets the gun and holds it on them, and says that Sully has to come to her or she'll kill them both. So Sully starts walking toward Joni and then immediately makes a break for it and jumps off the side of the bridge into the river below, or I
Well,
guess the
with
lake.
the encouragement of her father, like saying like
Yeah,
you can do it, because normally, like we mentioned this whole in the whole movie, Robert refuses to let anybody get anywhere near that water, including Joni slash Bridget, including Sully.
yeah,
Sully can't
yeah.
even ride a bicycle in the street, even with training wheels, because she could die.
Yeah, so she runs and she jumps into the water, and then Robert follows. Then Joni leans over. The Robert and Sully get into a boat, and Robert's trying to start the motor when Joni starts to get a bead on them. A gunshot rings out. Of course, it's the classic. It's not the bad guy's gun who went off. It's Sarah who has picked up the pistol that Joni left behind back at the Benson's house. She has shot Joni. Joni then slumps over, falls off the bridge into the lake, and floats face down in it. Then we skip ahead 6 months, and the family dances in the kitchen in a manic display that's almost like David Lynch style creepy.
Yeah, so in the movie they mentioned that when Robert before the whole thing happened with the lost child, that Robert used to do goofy things. He used to like dance to bad music in the kitchen. I thought it was a really weird line because they mentioned that in the beginning of the movie. At
Yeah,
the end of the
yeah.
movie, they're playing a song in the kitchen, and Will Ferrell starts to do a goofy dance, joined by Kristen Wiig, and then joined by Sully. And I want to say this scene goes on for maybe 3 to 5 minutes. Like it's
And
a
the,
long scene.
and they have like painfully fake big ass smiles on their faces.
Right. It's
Where
this is the
it
only
feels
part of the movie. Only part
yeah,
of the
this
movie where it seems like it's a tongue in cheek part of the movie.
yeah, it feels like almost like an SNL type of skit. Like it feels like that. They're just grinning and dancing around, and you think, okay, so this definitely feels more like the whole thing was a spoof. Except again, they didn't turn that dial up for most of the movie. So for most of the movie, it just plays like a fairly slow moving Lifetime movie. Eric's gonna join us, which is great because we can get his take on the movie as well. But yeah, it was just it wasn't bad. It wasn't a bad film. It just it was weird because I couldn't put my finger on it. I couldn't put my finger on whether or not it was meant to be a comedy or just a regular Lifetime movie. Hey Eric, how long did you last in Deadly Adoption before you had a distraction?
I watched the whole thing.
You watched the whole thing with no distraction.
I watched the whole thing.
You are
Granted,
a gentleman and a
I
scholar.
had maybe 2 beers, but
Okay.
that wasn't
All right.
enough really. So
No, I'll take your word for it. Being a non-drinker myself, I don't know about such things.
sorry, I'm late.
All right, so I just went through the whole plot. We
Great.
don't have note. We don't. I don't have notes. Ayaz doesn't have notes. Do you have notes?
I don't have notes. I did not.
So
take
what's your take on the film? Because my take was that it wasn't quite a spoof because it didn't go far enough for it to be a spoof.
Yeah.
It wasn't like a perfectly sincere take. It was somewhere in the middle for me.
Yeah, it was weird. It was definitely somewhere in the middle. Like it was more sincere than it was a spoof, that's for sure. Because I don't even know if it was a spoof at all.
Well, that we were talking about the dance scene at the very end definitely felt
yeah.
weird.
But it was
Like
it was added in. So I was talking to my girlfriend about it, and she was saying one of her friends, the rumor was that when Kristen Wiig and Will Ferrell watched it afterwards, they realized it wasn't funny and didn't want Lifetime to release it. And I was like, well, I don't think that's true, but I think that is definitely
yeah.
there's something in that.
The story I had heard was that what they wanted to do, according to what I heard, they wanted the movie to be released without any fanfare. So people who watch it just start, like, the joke would be, holy shit, is that Will Ferrell? holy
Right.
shit, is that Kristen Wiig? And then just watching it, waiting for it to be funny, and that was the joke, like a Kaufman style, Andy Kaufman
Right.
style joke. Where the joke's really on the audience. The joke isn't in the story itself; it's in the viewing of the story. And the thing was that the announcement got leaked on April Fool's Day this year, and
Mhm.
then Will Ferrell apparently got really upset and was like, "Well, I don't want to release it now." The whole point was to have this sly kind of film
Right.
come out without any fanfare, and then people would discover it, and that's where the joke would come in.
No, I mean that
Uh,
sounds perfectly. Yeah, I mean that sounds reasonable too. Yeah.
yeah, because if you just watch it, it's not with a couple of exceptions. There's one line that Will Ferrell delivers about diabetic hematosis or something like that that's hilarious because it's so sincere. You're well aware of the dangers of diabetic whatever it was, and I was like,
Yeah.
that's good. That's a good line delivery. Um, so there's that. But there is one taking this just as like, okay, here's what this is. This is a Lifetime movie. It's the crazy female character goes super crazy in the third act, but for the first two acts, she's just kind of vaguely menacing without being outright dangerous or anything. Um, with that in mind, there's one huge plot hole to this, enormous plot hole. And I just want to hear if either of you saw the same thing I saw. That
Uh,
was all right, so keep in mind this plot depends upon a young lady faking being pregnant to be taken in by the Bensons. Where's the plot hole?
There's never an ultrasound.
right.
There's never an ultrasound. And what about the caseworker? The person working the adoption case. Don't you think maybe that an organization that facilitates adoptions would want to check on things like that and actually have records? There's no indication that the woman who is facilitating the adoption is in on Bridget's plan.
Yeah, but wait a second. I thought that the person who replaced Bridget, Joni, looked physically similar. There was somebody named Bridget. She had gone missing and replaced by Joni. So the caseworker basically was inept because they're like,
Right.
well, looks close enough. And they went ahead with
Wildly
it.
inept, because when the police look at the picture, it does not look like that girl.
I'm just saying, like, the closest thing was it's a brunette white person. And apparently that's all that mattered to the caseworker.
Yeah, see, that was the thing I thought was the biggest plot hole, was that this deception relies upon a third party either
Right.
being completely incapable of detecting whether or not someone's actually pregnant, or who happens to be in on the scam. And because we never see her again, she's not likely not supposed to be in on the scam. So that was a big plot hole to me. But I mean, not that I fucking cared, because I mean, why get upset at a Lifetime movie?
Yeah.
Well, I quite thoroughly enjoyed the movie. I liked that I know it was not exactly a spoof. I thought the idea of doing a movie that essentially, like, I'm looking at the IMDb rating, I think it's 5.3. It's essentially exactly what it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
It's not a good movie. It's not like an asylum movie where, like, yeah, we got a good title and it's kind of like winking at the audience, but it's like intentionally making a mediocre movie. That's what this movie seemed like to me. Now, whether or not Will Ferrell and Kristen Wiig wanted that to happen, that's what this movie was. It was perfect. It could totally fit in with a marathon of these movies. If you had, like, Christie's Revenge, which I talked about in a different episode, or whatever else, like Carla, these other movies that are just like completely over the top, it would totally fit in because it's like, huh, okay. I want to say it's a prosthetic beard, the little, like, makeup on
Yeah.
Will
Oh,
Ferrell
yeah.
Ferrell.
was unnecessary and comedic at times, but also, like, I've seen enough Lifetime movies where the effects are not exactly top notch. That ridiculous ending with the dancing, I've seen enough movies on Lifetime where an ending like that totally has been at the end of these movies that makes no sense, but it's happened so often that I was like, yeah, that could happen. If you put this movie 15 years ago, I'd be like, yeah, that's a paint by numbers movie for
So I would
Lifetime.
say that A Deadly Adoption is a film that was specifically made for IAS
Essentially,
because
it was.
Yeah, I think so.
in order to enjoy this movie, you have to be aware of the tropes in the Lifetime original movies, so that you
Yeah.
can recognize how they are specifically setting out to hit each of those pieces. And
The
if you're
only
not familiar with it, then you don't get the fact that they are painting by the numbers.
Yeah.
You just realize it's a
I mean,
mediocre movie.
I think I'd seen enough where I got like I understood the tropes. I mean, I grew
Yeah.
up with three sisters and a mom. Like, I've watched lots of these movies, but like, yeah, I was I don't know. Like, I can't say that I was impressed with it because of that. It's just a hard movie to judge because of that. Because I don't know what to think.
one of the things, if I want to criticize this movie at all, if it was going to be a real Lifetime movie, you need to have actors in it that are trying to extend their range. So you need somebody who's playing a goody two shoes on other shows that are having a hard time, and they're trying to be the bad girl. I think the one that plays Joni slash Bridget was on 90210 or something, but I didn't watch that show, so I don't know what exactly she was there. Maybe she was like a sweet, innocent character. So maybe that's actually in this movie. But it'd be nicer to see, like, in other movies I've seen, like, here's Felicia Rashad from The Cosby Show, who is a hard nosed detective. It's like, really? She's a hard nosed detective? She's a badass? She's just shooting people? Well, that's crazy. Like, you don't have that. Obviously, you have Will Ferrell and Kristen Wiig, but they're still on the uptick. It's not like they were playing far off characters from like SNL sketches. It definitely seemed like they
Yeah.
were playing these very nice people that at any time something goofy could happen.
Yeah, it just I don't know. I think I needed it to be a little more intense for me to really enjoy it. I certainly recognize what was going on, and they did. I mean, they did a great job of like replicating a Lifetime movie, but they you could argue that's not replicating. That's just making a Lifetime movie. Like
Exactly. So
there's
they
no
made a
commentary there, so
well, and that's the
you
thing.
know.
Like, it's not like they made a Lifetime movie because I don't. They didn't write it, did they? I mean,
I know
it
Adam
had to.
McKay was one of the producers, so when I saw that, I was like, "This is really weird,"
Yeah.
because it's one of those things where like you feel like there needs to be just a little bit more of a wink and a nod if they're actually saying anything, because otherwise they're not.
It's
They're just making a Lifetime movie,
it's
and
written
that's
by
it.
Andrew Steele, who apparently is known for SNL and the Ladies Man movie.
What?
That's what
Yeah.
it
See,
says.
this is it's so weird, right? It's so weird.
So they literally did shoot out to like get a team together who was going to write a Lifetime movie. Like,
Yeah,
I,
without it actually being a joke, which
It kind of
is
feels like you ever see like those Beatles hoaxes where there's like a cover band that releases a track and it's the lost track. It's almost like seeing if they can get away with it. I think that's kind of what Will Ferrell and Kristen were going for,
that's
right?
what
They
they
didn't
wanted
want
to
any of the
like.
publicity, like you were saying. So if this just went
yeah.
out there, it would have been like cool. But now it's just kind of like there was all this build up on it. But I still
Yeah.
enjoyed it. It's
Well,
a
I mean,
dumb
it
movie.
it was
Yeah.
well, and this means that there are two things that we have to do before we can move on. And like I know Eric just joined us, but to kind of start heading toward wrapping this up, one of those two things is that Eric, it's your turn to pick a movie.
Yeah, I'm seeing if I had one queued up because I
Well,
probably
if you want to look through your movies and see, I could tell a story about being assaulted today.
Oh yeah,
is this
so
the yeah I want to hear this.
the thumb.
The Great Thumb Incident. Okay. So I go to a restaurant today called Eats, which is on Ponce de Leon Avenue, and yes, that's how it's pronounced here in Atlanta. Ponce de Leon Avenue. Eats is an old school Southern cafeteria place, a meat and three or a meat and two, as they sometimes call them, where you go and you order like I'll take the meatloaf and a couple of veggie sides and a sweet tea to drink, and that's your typical order. I was there with a couple of my coworkers, and we had a decent lunch, nice conversation, talked about stuff that's going on at work. And when we concluded, it was time for me to get back because I had to shoot a video, and I was worried that if I lingered any longer, that I would be late. I didn't want the crew to have to wait on me. So the thing is that it's across the street from where I work. And we actually had to go up the street a little ways to get to a crosswalk where we could cross Ponce de Leon safely and then walk over back to the building. So I walk up to the crosswalk. My coworkers join me because it's against the light, so I'm waiting. And while we're just chatting, getting an interesting history lesson on the city of Boston, which one of my coworkers is originally from, a homeless lady walks up. And she looks at me and she's like, can y'all give me any of your leftovers? All I have, literally in my hand, is a paper cup that once held sweet tea and now holds nothing. And the only reason I still have it in my hand is because I haven't passed a trash can yet. I say, I don't have anything. And she's like, you gotta have something. I don't have $1 in my wallet. I mean, I'm absolutely being honest. I'm like, no, I don't have anything. So she reaches up to grab my goatee and give it a tug, except she does this, like that. Her thumb goes over my mouth, my lip, pulling my lower lip down before she grabs my goatee, gives it a tug. Not a hard one, but I had a homeless lady run her thumb over my mouth in, I guess, what she thought was a gesture of affection to convince me to give her something. Whereupon one of my coworkers stepped in and gave her his cup of Dr. Pepper. Then she went on to tell us stuff, but in an accent so thick, a voice so low that we were only able to capture a little bit of it. But all three of us felt reasonably confident that it was wildly racist. Didn't hear a lot, but we definitely heard some phrases that suggested she held certain backwards views of particular demographics. And then she started comparing her tan to us. And then the light finally changed and we were able to cross the street to head back to the building. Whereupon one of my two coworkers, Paul, said, oh, I thought it was endearing. He was just ribbing me. So I said, oh, you thought it was endearing when she did this? And I rubbed my thumb down across his mouth. And then he's like, oh. Yeah, you feel violated now, don't you? He's like, nothing you can do will ever make me feel violated. I said, I will step up my game. And that is how I got a homeless person nearly shoving her thumb into my mouth today.
Wow.
That was
And
the second. That was the second hardest thing that happened to me today.
And you almost choked to death on a Twizzler today. Is that true too?
That was the third worst thing to happen to me today. Yes.
Okay. I mean, they have
Yeah,
they're not solid. So I mean, how did you manage that? I mean, because there's like a hole in the middle.
There was just this moment where I hate Twizzlers, by the way. I hate them. I do not.
So why were you eating
them? What? I was stress eating. This was a stressful day. I was feeling crappy. I was like, I've got to have something. I don't have anything at my desk, but at the front desk, they have Hershey's Kisses and Twizzlers in a bowl. And I was like, well, I don't like Twizzlers, but it'll get me, like, I'll concentrate on having this as a little snack and I'll get my mind off of the things that are stressing me out. One, that I may have thumb herpes. I don't know. And so I unwrap the Twizzlers and I eat it and I put the last piece in my mouth, chew it up, and part of it gets lodged in my throat and I start coughing, which dislodges it. At this point, every time I breathe out, I can taste the faint taste of Twizzlers because it got lodged in my air pipe there. And that's when I posted, like, I nearly choked to death on the Twizzlers, which is doubly awful because I hate Twizzlers so much. And that's going to be on my tombstone or obituary, choked to death on Twizzlers. And that was the third worst thing that happened to me today. Yeah. So it's been a rough day.
So Eric, did that give you enough time to find a movie?
It did. I did have one queued up, and it's Britney Spears' Crossroads. It's got.
Oh, we talked about this. Jesus. Yeah. Okay. I can't wait to hear your multiple translated review of this movie.
Okay, I'm adding it to my list now. It's got
Crossroads. Yeah, I gotta do that too, or I'll forget.
Let's see, Crossroads. I'm not trying to watch it now. No. I just want to. The new interface is very helpful, but I'm trying to find out like what is its rating for me.
I got 2 stars.
It says 2 and like a quarter for me, which is fine. I can handle that. It's either that or it's going to be a view from the top, right?
For me, it is.
That's the Gwyneth Paltrow
For me,
stewardess movie.
It looks like
yeah.
it's 1 and something. It's 1 star plus a little bit of a second star, like maybe 1.2 or 1.3. I'm guessing. Add that to my list.
Oh yeah, you can't even tell by my camera.
Oh, Zoe Saldana is in this. I did not know that.
My house is
No.
like slowly getting empty. That's like part of the reason I was late is I ran into because I'm moving. So
Yeah.
you run into random people and they're like, "Oh no, we have to talk for a while." And I'm like, "No, I don't. I gotta
I have a
Like-
pre-existing obligation to talk
we didn't
stupid
talk.
shit about
We didn't
bad
talk
movies.
before, so why start now? I mean,
Exactly.
that's starting a habit.
Yeah.
Well,
No,
yeah.
it's okay.
I'm glad you were able to join me and hear about thumb herpes. At least that's good.
That's the title of the episode. I
Thumb
think
herpes.
It has to be, or like.
I mean,
thumb herpes.
I don't want to make something clear here. I recognize that the homeless are human beings, and I have a lot of compassion for the homeless. I don't do well in social situations where people I don't know come up to me and start talking to me, just in general.
It's true.
I
Homeless
definitely
or not,
don't-
somebody puts their finger in your mouth. It's weird.
That's a point where it doesn't matter who you are. Really, I mean, whether I know you or not, that's breaking a social contract that I think is implied, at least.
Generally.
Yeah. So, I mean, if I have invited
at
you
least
to stick
without
your
a safe
finger in my
word or
mouth,
something.
yeah, no, like I did scream I need an adult, but yeah, no, it was.
Is that your safe word? That's your go-to? I need an adult? That must make things awkward.
Anyway,
I got a joke, but I can't tell it on the air. So, yeah, it was a rough day, y'all. It was a rough day. But yeah, that was just one of those moments where, like, I was like, is this really happening to me right now? Is this really happening to me? And yes, it was. It also explains why I usually go to the food truck rather than cross the street to the restaurants that are nearby. Pond
Crossing
City
the
Market.
street is that much more dangerous?
It's just that Pond City Market is in a part of Atlanta that is undergoing gentrification, and it's a part of Atlanta that is known for having some pretty rough characters nearby. I mean, the general block that Pond City Market is on is pretty nice, but it's near areas that are a little more run down and are known to have lots of homeless people, drug addicts, prostitutes. I mean, it's a seedy little section of Atlanta. There are pockets of that in Atlanta, and this is one of them. It's not too far away. It's so much so that one of the things our boss told us when we moved into Pond City Market was that he didn't want anyone walking to the nearest train station because you would have to go through some of these neighborhoods. He said this on the day after I had walked from the train station because I'm not really as concerned. Most people don't stop me. Even though I'm harmless, people see a bald guy and they think skinhead, which no, it's just that I'm bald.
maybe that's why that racist lady was trying to bond with you.
That might have been it.
Maybe,
That might
maybe
have
the
been
thumb thing is actually something a part of a subculture that we are all
like,
not a part of.
Some sort of white supremacist sign. It might be.
It could be.
That
It's
would
like my thumb's so clean, like it's got to go past both your lips and tug at your goatee. I don't understand why the tug was even followed through with. By the way, because I would think your horrified look would be like,
This was. Believe it or not, this is a woman who appeared to be incapable of picking up on social cues.
Okay, on that note, we should look into the future because we're holding people hostage. Next time on Podcast Without Pretense.
A homeless man shoved his toe in my mouth.
Once again, Eric has the best points of the episode.
Okay, so I think the homeless thumb mouth thing is a thing because a guy did it up the street. But I think it was a prostitute.